So I moved to Poland in 2023 as a Russian citizen. Since then, I have made a bunch of videos exploring Poland and talking about my experiences. But I do often get asked the question of how I managed to move to Poland as a Russian after the war has already started and EU countries introduced restrictions against people like me. Well, it definitely wasn't easy, and the only reason I even embarked on it was because I really like Poland and really wanted to live here specifically. So in this video, I will be talking about my entire journey of migrating to Poland and explaining all the difficulties that I had to encounter along the way. Let's get started. So, visas. This part is probably the most confusing to a lot of people. After the war started, Poland suspended visas to Russian citizens for the purposes of tourism, business, and a few others. Visas for work and studies have become far more difficult to get, with higher rejection rates and more scrutiny. So, how did I get in? Well, the answer is pretty straightforward. I have simply already been an EU resident beforehand. Before moving to Poland, I have been studying in a different Schengen country, and coming to Poland with the residency card of that country was pretty easy. Obviously, as a citizen of your own country, you don't really know or care about the details of migration bureaucracy. And I fully understand that because the same applies to me as well. As a Russian, I have zero clue on how hard it is to get Russian visas for foreigners and what processes they have to go through. This is often weaponized by politicians, which take advantage of people's ignorance in order to push their own populist decisions. For example, certain parties in Poland want to increase the waiting period for foreigners to get their citizenship from 3 to 10 years, arguing that 3 years is too short. And any normal person would say, well, yeah, 3 years does indeed sound pretty short, let's change it. But that is a manipulation, because these 3 years only start counting if you already have permanent residency in Poland. And most people don't know, but you need to live in Poland for 5 years before being able to get this permanent residency. And if you were studying, only half of the time you spent in Poland counts towards those 5 years. You can also add the massive bureaucracy delays to this, and the average waiting time for a citizenship is suddenly not 3 years, as many people might think, but more than 10. And the new laws could potentially increase it from 10 to 17 years. Now, if that is something you still agree with, that's fine. It's your country, and you decide what rules you want to have. But most people will misunderstand the 3 years thing and make a decision which they otherwise might not have. Anyway, what did I do once I was in Poland? Obviously, a foreign residency would only allow me to stay in Poland for 90 days, and so I had to get Polish residency. And I went for a residency based on studies. Once I was in Poland, I went ahead and passed a Polish language exam to qualify for a Polish university. I then applied to different unis, passed entrance exams, and got accepted into a Polish program. The first year I had to pay money for, but later I passed the C1 Polish language exam, which exempted me from having to pay for university. Now, maybe some Polish people will dislike the fact that foreigners can get free education in Poland if they pass this C1 language exam, but it's really not that simple. The exam itself costs like 200 euros, which is pretty expensive. And I was the first foreigner in my dean's office who even managed to get this certificate. At first they were pretty confused on what to do because it never happened before. It really is a very difficult exam, and it makes economic sense to reward and keep foreign graduates in the country instead of having them leave elsewhere. Again, many might disagree with me, and that's okay, but many people greatly overestimate just how few foreigners ever manage to even make use of this. Anyway, after I got accepted into university, I had to get a health insurance. For the first year, I got a private one, which I later switched to the Polish NFZ insurance. As a student, you only pay like 50 zlotys per month for it, which is pretty affordable. And now, here come the difficulties. Difficulties which I honestly was not very well prepared for. Not that getting into the university was easy, but yeah. Next, I had to open a bank account. And Jesus Christ, was this difficult. In Poland, if you want to apply for residency, you usually need to have a Polish bank account. And to get a Polish bank account, most banks will ask you for Polish residency. So it's this awful catch-22 essentially. And additionally, as a Russian citizen, you are considered a financial risk by default, and many banks just flat out refuse to open you an account if you don't already have a residency card. I genuinely had to go to 20 different bank branches before I found one which would open me an account. 20. When I plopped my Russian passport on the desk, it might as well have been a passport of North Korea or South Sudan, because these poor workers were genuinely confused and didn't know what to do with me. Every time they would call higher management to try and understand what to do. And finally, after many attempts, I went into the third branch of this one bank, and they finally opened me an account. So the other two branches of the same bank refused me, but this one in particular I got lucky with. Unfortunately, since then, the rules have only gotten stricter. Even now, after living in Poland for 3 years, having gone through the entire process of legalization, I am still treading in dangerous waters. My residency card will expire soon, and while I can stay in Poland legally while waiting for it to renew, the banks might nuke all of my accounts after it expires. Even though I'll be in the country completely legally whilst waiting for a new card, I might be left without any bank accounts. And considering I waited for 2 years to get my first card, I might be looking at a situation where I'd have to somehow exist here for 2 years without a Polish bank account. I don't even have any Russian bank accounts, and even if I did, it's not like I can send any money from them to Europe due to sanctions. Well, anyway, after getting a bank account, I had to find a place to live. Because I already spoke Polish quite well, I didn't have any issues securing a room from a Polish landlord. They did ask me to pay double the usual deposit for being a foreigner, but otherwise things were fine. And so I applied for my residency. As you know from my prior videos, I had to wait for 2 years in order to get it, during which I couldn't leave the country or even work. At first, my application was even rejected, because I assume I didn't have enough money. Basically, you have to show that you have enough money to sustain yourself, and part of that calculation is money for a return ticket to your home country. Now, usually non-EU foreigners have to pay 2,500 zlotys for this, but it does say that if your country borders with Poland, you only have to pay 200 zlotys. And since Russia borders Poland with Kaliningrad, I only added 200 zlotys into the calculation. And I assume the inspectors might have forgotten that Russia borders Poland, or maybe some other issue came up, and they just rejected me based on those grounds. But after I made an appeal, which included more money, I was given a positive decision. I was finally able to fly out of Poland and visit my family, which I have not seen for almost 3 years at that point. And that takes me to today. The ground under my feet is still not sturdy, and you almost get used to living without knowing what could happen to your legal status next month. You have your own country which wants to throw you into the meat grinder, and then Europe which also doesn't really welcome your stupid mug over here. Hopefully things end up working out fine, and you really learn to live your life in the current moment with all of this stuff. I really hope I won't have to move out to Argentina or wherever Russians are still accepted today, as that would also mean that I wouldn't be able to continue this channel. Oh well, thank you for watching. Check out my other videos about Poland if you are interested, and also we have recently opened a Discord channel. The invite link will be in the description. Cheers.